Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome to the Marcy's Magic podcast, where I, Marcy, will be talking to you all about your spiritual evolution, God, love, and so much more. In today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about being fun and being sober. So, this is stemming from a few conversations that I've had with people recently where there's been a general theme of people expressing fears around being seen as boring due to going sober, due to changes in lifestyles and overall just no longer wanting to get drunk. And I myself have been sober for over 2 years now. I went sober August 2022, and it was something that I'm going to say, started trialing in the months leading up to August 2022. And there's just so much that I want to share with you about my experiences and ways of handling your fears, making their transitions, having their conversations with people that I think will be really useful for everyone to consider. So that is what you can expect from today's episode. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my history with substances, the sobriety journey, where I'm at now, as well as ways of making it work for you in the most loving and supportive way possible, because that is what I'm all about. My approach to everything is that there's just no point in doing it in any way that is not full of love and full of safety and support. Because it's the love and safety and support that create those real, deep transformational changes that last a while. So, let's get cracking it. So, from a very young age, I found myself in environments where people would drink, which naturally made me drink. There was no one pressuring me, no one forcing me to do anything, but I do believe that environment plays such a huge role in shaping our perceptions on what's normal, to the point where we may not even think about what's right or wrong for us. We sort of go with the crowd, especially in those really formative years of being a teen, and then going up to the late teens and early 20s. But it was never really a problem until a couple of years ago, probably about 8 years ago now, if I'm counting right. Yes, just over 8 years ago, where it did become a real problem. As I sort of dabbled out of alcohol into various other things, as I went through an incredibly challenging time, and I just needed to cope, to be honest. So I was reaching for various things to help me move through this really dark patch until I reached a point where I found myself feeling really ill. Felt like my body was starting to really reject what I was trying to consume. So then I went sober. I stopped taking a lot of things, but I did still drink occasionally. Fast forward to a few years on, I again found myself in environments where going out every weekend and taking things was the norm. And there was always a part of me that knew I didn't really want to do it, but I did. Like, I didn't want to do it, but at the same time I did, because I associated spending time with my friends as going out and getting fucked up. And I never really questioned it because of how much of a norm it was. And I think that in the UK specifically, going out and getting blackout drunk really is just such a normal thing. And it really bothers me because there's a lot of things in society that are seen as the norm or seen as normal because it's experienced by a lot of people, but they're really not normal. So anyway, it's starting getting to a point a couple of years ago where I did find myself going out, and then I'd wake up the next day and I'd be like, why did I do this? I didn't even want to do it. And I'd promise myself, okay, next time I go out, I'm just not really going to drink or I'm not going to take anything. It's going to be fine. And I'd go out and then I'd give in. And then I found myself in this cycle of starting to get really wound up with myself for not being able to stick to my word. So I started internalizing a lot of it, and I was like, oh my god, like, you can't even do this, can't even do that. Until I reached a point where I realized something needed to change. Nothing was gonna change until something changed. And at that point in my spiritual journey, I was super in tune with myself, quite intuitive. I've done a lot of work clearing past traumas and all sorts. And I felt really confident within my soul purpose. I was happy with what I was doing with life. And honestly, I was quite a happy person. Yes, I was doing things like going out and getting drunk when I didn't want to, but my mental health was absolutely fine. And I was having a good time, but I knew that it just wasn't how I wanted to live my life anymore. So I was ready for more. It reached a point where I just decided I can't continue living like this. So at that moment of recognizing that I wanted more from life, I decided to take responsibility that, well, I'm the only person that can make this happen. So I started going out less. Instead of going out every weekend, I gave myself a weekend break. And after the first one, I was like, wow, life is really lovely. It feels so lovely to feel like I have so much more time. It's lovely to not start my week feeling extremely tired. I was starting to see a lot of pros to going sober. But also a lot of fears because in my circle, no one else was doing that. Yes, there were people that weren't necessarily going out every weekend, but there was no one there that was completely sober. So it was an enormous edge. But I knew it intuitively that I needed to grow, that I reached a certain point, I mastered it, it was time to move on to the next level. And it wasn't until a night out in August 2022, and I had fun, but I got really drunk, and I remember thinking to myself, this is the last time. Like, I can't do this anymore. It's just no longer me. It felt like I was chipping away parts of myself every single time that I got drunk. Especially because, like I said, I really tried to not drink in certain social settings, but then I'd just give in to the temptation. And what I then later learned was that it is much easier to completely avoid the temptation than to resist it. I feel that that's a really important point of reflection for a lot of people that are listening that are considering going sober or at least reducing how much they go out and how much they drink. It is much easier to not be around the thing that tempts you than it is being around it and trying to resist it. Because when you put yourself in that environment of being surrounded by the temptations, even though you don't want to, you're using a lot of your energy, even if only subconsciously, trying to close yourself off from it. And let's say you're like, I'm not going to drink, but then you go to a pub and you're used to drinking in the pub. And you're used to having a drink when you see certain people. Your brain starts acting out. Your brain starts pushing the thoughts of like, oh, maybe I should do it, because we are creatures of habit. So again, it is so much easier to not be put in these situations. So then from that night out in August 2022, I made a decision to just stop completely. And a lovely friend of mine bought me a book that just changed my life. It's called The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober. And there was a saying in it that spoke about never questioning the decision. And that's something that massively grounded me in that process, because there were times where I thought, oh, maybe I could go out, maybe I could do it, or like, you know, the brain takes some time to unlearn certain patterns, but it was the saying of never question a decision that really helped me stick to the plan. And one thing that I really want to shed the light on was that for me, it was really important to go completely sober. And I was quite a big fan of the green leaf, and often the two ended up being combined. So it was important for me to be like completely sober, nothing, right? Which is why the idea of never questioning a decision was something that really helped me through that period, that transitional period. But what I want you to think about is how much you want to not commit yourself to it, but how much of a change do you really want to see? I think it's important to think about what are your current habits, because if, let's say, you're going out every single weekend, Friday, Saturday, that's going to be a much bigger habit to change than if you're going out once a fortnight. So do take the idea of never question a decision if you feel like there's a huge change for you to make. But if you feel like you're not wanting to go completely teetotal, you want to reduce, then allow yourself the space to do that. Things don't have to be so black and white. It doesn't have to be 0 to 100. It can be 50%. If all you want is the halfway, in a way, that's still the 100%. So let's not shame ourselves for still wanting to drink. And I have my own personal reasons for not wanting to drink. There's, the old patterns and whatever, but also what I know about the effects of alcohol, how it disrupts your sleep. I'm also sensitive. If I have a drink, I will feel the effects of it on the quality of my sleep, and I'll feel tired. Even if I just have one small glass of wine, I feel it. So for me, it's an act of love to not drink, because I feel the effect of it regardless if I get blackout drunk or if it's just a one drink. But there's absolutely no shame if you're someone that does enjoy a drink. If you're someone that does want to continue having a drink from time to time. And too often we can shame ourselves when we make those changes. And that's something that I think is a really crucial part of this process, is recognizing that, yes, you want to change, but there's nothing wrong if you're still having a drink and still going out because you want to have fun. There's literally nothing wrong with that. For me, a big part of taking the responsibility for my life was admitting that, yes, on a big level, I didn't want to drink, but I still made the choice and drank and took things and whatever. But I was also having fun, you know? It's not my idea of fun now, definitely not. I wouldn't be able to handle a night out, but it was fun at the time. And that's something that we really need to recognize, is the fact that we evolve, and so do your ideas, your points of view. So I was vegetarian for about 7 years. I am now the biggest meat eater I know. I did develop slight anemia because of it, but that required me. That was a lifestyle change, and it required me to change my worldview. It required me to change what I thought was appropriate for me. And the exact same thing applies to your perception of fun, because the people that I've been speaking to over these last few weeks about this, they all express that they're scared of people thinking that they're no longer fun. And my honest answer is that you need to have a check in with yourself about this and the quality of your friendships, because if you feel that you can only have fun with certain people after you've had a drink, then the chances are your relationship is not built on a stable foundation. It's built on something that is not real, because essentially alcohol is not your authentic version. And it may be a really painful point of consideration for some people to think about the quality of your relationships, but ultimately, alcohol does cloud your judgment. So, one thing that was revealed to me when I went sober was it showed a great deal about who my friends really are, because I realized there were people in my life that were party people. You know, they were there for me to party, and there's absolutely no shame with that. They're there for a reason. But it made me realize who are the soul friends that I have, who are the people I can go and have a really wholesome day out. And I really invite you to reflect on the same thing. And again, there is literally no shame about it, because I think that every relationship that is in our life, it serves a purpose. It's there for a certain reason, and as long as it's a friendship that you're still happy in, that feel like there is purpose to it and that you're not clutching onto it just because there's history or you feel bad letting go, then there's no need to fret about it. So, for example, I have an incredible friend who loves to go to raves, and now he is just one of the most precious, soulful people. Love him with my entire heart. And he feels the same. We always have the most magical time when we're together. He knows I'm not the person to call up if he wants to go to a rave. And that's fine, because our friendship serves a different purpose than some of his other friendships with the people that he would go to a rave. And there's an element of society having such a big part on our decisions, on how we spend our time and whatever. And for me, I was real scared of people's reaction. I was like, oh my god, like, what are they gonna say? Like, am I gonna be just such a freak, the odd one out, and whatever? And since these last few weeks, since I've had a few conversations with people who are now having the same experiences that I was having, they're having the same reactions. And honestly, in the nicest way possible, people don't give a fuck. I remember my first sober night out. Um, I was super energized because I've just been to a coffee festival. I drank so much coffee, and I was like, I'm ready to party. Now, bear in mind, I've never been someone that could stay out very late. I have done a handful of times, but I was always one of the first people to go home. So I was like, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna see what happens, and then when I'm tired and I want to go, I'll go. And I went, and at first I was like, oh my god, everyone's gonna know I'm not drinking. I got myself some tonic water because I love tonic water. I'm not ashamed to admit that. And I was just drinking it away, dancing with some lovely people. And I was like, nobody knows I'm sober now. And it was fine. And then I told a few people just to sort of test the waters. And honestly, people genuinely don't give a fuck. In one of the conversations that I was having about this with a friend, she said she tested this out and ended up sort of not having a drink. And someone made a passing comment, literally just asking her if she's pregnant because she usually drinks. She was like, no, just don't feel like drinking. And that was it. There's no one holding a gun to her head wanting her to explain her whole life story. There was no shame to it. It was just like, all right, okay. And the topic moved on. Now, I know that there will be situations where people will comment, where they will find it odd that you're not drinking. And I will admit, once I've gotten real comfortable with the decision of not drinking, it felt really good to be like, yeah, I don't drink, you know? You did things for my ego, okay? I was like, yeah, I don't drink, I'm better than you. Obviously, not true. But it was a nice ego kick, anyways. But that's besides the point. My point is that it is so normal that you're feeling stressed and anxious over making this decision to drink because you're worried of how people are going to react. And it's such a evolutionary response where it's natural for us to want to fit in. It's what we do, because if we don't fit in, we feel rejected, and our brains, the brains that have been designed to help us survive, they perceive that as death. And obviously it's not going to lead to that, but the brain just needs a little bit of time to work with it. Your brain will need you to remind it that actually it's okay and that it's actually better for you, and it's an act of love to not do this. So I would very much welcome you into considering, what is your ultimate truth about this topic? I invite you to really assess sort of where you're at right now, how you want to grow, and to what extent are you making decisions that are no longer supportive of the person that you're turning into, and questioning, evaluating how can you embody that in the most loving way possible. One thing that I also want to add here is that yes, I made the decision to go sober, and I was, but then I decided that I want to be able to have the flexibility. So the first few months were really vital for me to be completely sober, and then I was like, right, you know what? Yeah, okay, this is incredible, but I don't want to completely shut myself away from it forever. And now, when I choose to drink, which is super sporadic, but when I do, it feels very intentional. It feels like, it does feel then like actual fun, because I'm not choosing to drink from a place of, oh, I need it to relax, or I'm doing it because other people are doing it. It's coming from a place of, okay, I literally just want to have a drink in this situation, so I'm gonna do it. So do really assess how you want to move forward with it, and really think about the pros. Like, why do you want to do this? What do you think will be the benefit of it? For me, a huge benefit of it was when, after the first month, I reached the end of the month and I could buy myself a book, right? Because I spent a ridiculous amount of money on night out. And usually, sort of like the last few days before payday, there was just not much there, you know? And I earn quite good money at the time. So to then get to the end of the month and be able to buy myself a book, and then also put some money away, I was like, this is it. I'm convinced. Like, you could never convince me to do anything differently. And being sober required me to get really creative because I no longer wanted to go out. So, but I weren't just gonna sit at home and watch TV. So I started to get creative, and it felt so good to start writing poems again. And that led me to performing at my first open mic, and then meeting so amazing people. And there was just, oh my god, I could talk about the pros of it for hours, but essentially what I want to end with is that the decision to go sober will be one of the most enlightening things that you can do for yourself, because it will show you the truest authenticity of yourself, your ego, your friendships, the quality of your life, your decisions, all of it. And there's obviously so many great benefits of doing so, financially and for your physical body and all your other bodies too. But do you know what I mean? And one final thing that I want to close up with is, remember, you're an evolving human being. It's what you do. You are designed to evolve. And with that, so will all your ideas about the world. So really evaluate and reevaluate and do it over and over again. What is your idea of fun? Yes, admit that the time that you had when you used to go out drinking every weekend, it was fun. Absolutely no shame about it. But you're a different person now. So what does it mean to you now? And I'd really love to hear from you. I would really love to hear what is your idea of fun now. And if you're considering going sober, if you've just made the decision, I'd love to hear from you. Please tell me about your experiences. Shoot me a DM on Instagram or pop something in the comments, and I very much forward. Oh my god, I very much looking. I can't speak anymore. What on earth? I very much look forward to hearing from you. Ciao for now.